Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 17 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. We're meeting with Ryan Wimpey, the founder of TipTop K9, a company that provides dog training, obedience, and manners training. And since 2008, TipTop K9 has expanded into 18 locations across the United States, and they've been shaping the dog training industry in unique ways. We're going to talk to Ryan about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, and you are listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 17 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show. We're meeting with Ryan Wimpey, the founder of TipTop K9. And since 2008, TipTop K9 has expanded into 18 locations across the United States, and they've been shaping the dog training industry in unique ways. Hi, Ryan. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Marty, thanks for having me.
This is my pleasure, Ryan. It's great to have you on the show. I always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today, Ryan?
I am from Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where our corporate headquarters is. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Is it hot there today?
Getting there, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a super hot July compared, but yeah, it's below 100, so it's not too bad.
Well, that's good. That's good. It sounds like we have kind of like the same weather going on in Pennsylvania, you know. So I'm always curious. Yeah. You have an amazing story, Ryan. You know, and I said, you know, maybe we can kind of go back to the beginning because, you know, since 2008. I mean, that's a pretty long time that, you know, you've been doing this. Maybe, you know, you could talk a little bit about what you were doing before then, and then how this whole concept of TipTop K9 came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, started training in 2008. Basically, before that, I had a dog. His name was Curly. Rescued him off the side of the road, and he was a little Schnauzer Terrier mix, and he was a bad dog. Right? So, I mean, I loved him. It's just everybody else didn't necessarily share that. He had all this, a massive amount of behavioral issues, potty training, barking, aggression, running away, all that stuff, right?
Right.
And it just got me obsessed with dog training and reading about dog training, watching every video, traveling hours to meet with trainers. Yeah. And then after a few years of that, I ended up training part-time and then going full-time as a trainer. And then 2008, started our own company.
It's such an amazing story, Ryan. It was kind of like your destiny, to do this. I mean, it's really fascinating. When you're meeting with, let's say, an aspiring entrepreneur, if you were at a franchise show, Ryan, and someone came up to your booth, and the typical question is always, so what do you do? How do you typically answer the question?
So if they ask as far as like, hey, what's a typical day look like? I'd be like, okay, well, imagine waking up and instead of going to a cubicle, you're actually working with dogs. You're training with dogs. You're training people how to work with dogs. You're fixing behavioral issues so dogs don't get put down. The number one reason why they get surrendered to the shelter is either people saying they're moving, mostly BS, because if you have a good dog, you're going to move with it, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then the second biggest reason is non-aggression behavioral issues. So behavioral issues like all those ones that I had with my first dog that I couldn't fix that was like causing stress and strain on relationships. Right. So when we take dogs and we fix the jumping, we fix them knocking over the kids, eating stuff off the counter, we make them loose leash walk, we stop the running away so they can go out front with the family. Like the dog is now back a part of the family unit, and those people that bought the dog, that loved on him as a puppy, they're back like, yes, my little buddy's back a part of the family. We don't have to ostracize them to the backyard anymore.
Right. Is there, again, you know this better than I do. I grew up with dogs my whole life, Ryan. So I've had many different types of dogs, and I was curious, like if the breed matters. Like we had this beagle I got when I think it was 5 years old, and she lived for like about 13 years, and she was awful. My mom was always threatening to, send her away or give her away. She was always going through the garbage, peeing all over the house, but then we got a Labrador, and the Labradors, they were so good. Does sometimes it come down to like the breed of the dog?
Yeah, the breed can play a huge part. Beagles are hard dogs to train. Like, they're trainable.
Are they really?
But most of them, we got to boot camp them. I need to take that dog for 2 or 3 weeks and fix it and then give it back fixed. Right. For most people to do homework with a lab, you can do anything and a lab will be trained.
Wow. That's fascinating.
But a beagle can be very challenging.
Beagles are tough. Okay, yeah, she was impossible. Yeah. I love that dog. I miss that dog to this day, but she was impossible. I fought tooth and nail to keep her, but it was something. I'm curious, like, at what point, Ryan, did you know that you were ready to? Was franchising like always in the picture, like when you first started the company, or was it something that kind of came about a little later on? Yeah, so. To start with, I only wanted to be in a few state area. What happened is my wife and I were driving 2 hours once a week to Oklahoma City from Tulsa to meet with an executive coach. And after 2 years of that, I was like, hey, if I go to this just 3-state area with corporate stores, I'm going to be driving once or twice a week, and I'm going to be gone twice a week. And that was basically was the main decision right there. Right. So once we got down to just 5 or 10 hours a week and the business is running, without me, it was just, hey, do we corporate store or franchise? Right. Yeah. No. And I think it was a great decision, to franchise, the model, because it sounds like, over that course of time, you were able to systematize it. Is your wife also involved in the business? Is like you would consider like a family operation, Ryan, like when you first started? Yeah, she's a manager. So she's basically manages our call center. So we have a call center that supports all 18 locations. Yeah. And then our wholesale company and the Tulsa company. So the corporate store that people come to train at. So she manages all 3 of those. Wow. That's fantastic. Yeah. How does technology play a role in the business today, Ryan? I have a feeling you probably use technology a little bit more than maybe, when you first got involved, like in 2008. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Absolutely, yeah. 2008, I remember I had the TipTop phone on me. I'm doing a lesson with an aggressive dog, and in someone's backyard, they have a small yard and a pool, and my phone rings, and I have to go, am I going to answer this phone and possibly get bit and end up in the pool, or what's going on here? Right. So fast forward
our call center answers for all the locations. We just spent like 6-8 months getting custom-coded call center software. And even though we had everything dialed in, just having some custom software for our processes, our lead to conversion rate went up 5%. Is
that right?
And our drop call volume went down. Yeah. So that's technology. It's just helping us be more efficient. The same, we're doing a whole new website redesign. When we A/B tested new pages, we had a page immediately pop this first week, 5% change, and then it went down to 4.5% and then to 8.5% higher conversion. So when we're able to use technology to squeak out higher conversions with the same number of leads, that's super exciting for us.
Right. Yeah, I think that is exciting, right? And I'm thinking about, I guess it's safe to say, you're part of a big industry. I don't know how many dogs we have in the United States, but I guess it's safe to say it's a lot. But, I get a lot of calls too, from other, franchises in your industry, to come on the show. And it seems like there's more of them today. I guess where I'm going with this is the industry. It seems to me that it's growing. I don't know if there's any hard numbers on the industry.
Yeah, so the industry is growing. The pet training services, according to MarketWatch, is a $4 billion industry right now.
Wow. Is that high? That's amazing.
And 40% of people in the U.S. own a dog, and then I think it's like 15% of those own 2.
Right, yeah.
So as far as clients, they're everywhere.
Yeah. It's interesting, Ryan, how the dog the pets have really elevated in society too. It's funny. We have this one neighbor. It's just sometimes when we're walking by their house, we can kind of see they have this picture. It's a single person, and he has a picture of him and then his 2 dogs. It's like the family picture. And then I have another friend. She actually, when she got married, she had her 2 dogs at the wedding. This is something that you maybe have not, you wouldn't have seen like maybe 30 years ago, but it's not uncommon today to see something like that, is it?
No, it's not uncommon at all. Are you ready for 2 like super crazy stats?
I am.
For dogs?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So this is why the pet industry's been going up 6% a year, but a 2019 survey of 2,000 pet owners found that 34% of them prefer their pets to their children.
Is that right? I haven't seen that one.
It's crazy. My. So that's not the crazier one is a 2014 study. They found moms' brains were similarly activated seeing a picture of their children and a picture of their dog.
Is that right?
So the same part of the brain is firing when you're like, hey, well, that's crazy. Yeah. Before you wouldn't see that. And that's because they're going out of the backyard. They're coming in the house. They're a part of the family.
Yep.
And that's why our industry keeps going up. Like COVID was great for us. We just skyrocketed straight through. Yeah.
I imagine. Here's a tough question for you, because you've been doing this such a long time, Ryan, but what's been, if you could narrow it down to one thing, which is probably pretty tough to do, but what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since starting TipTop K9? Does anything stand out where you kind of just say, wow, that's incredible?
Yeah, I'd say the most incredible thing literally just happened. One of our call center workers, she actually, after 3.5 years in our call center, she said, hey, I've done role play with these people coming in to open a franchise. Like, I want to do this too. And she literally she moved from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She was my call center, so she had no pet experience. She moved to Boise, Idaho. Okay. And her goal with the business was to get her husband off the road. He's a truck driver, right?
Okay, right.
And they have a 2-year-old child, and so truck drivers can make pretty handsome salaries, but they have to be gone 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, or 3 or 4 weeks out of the month.
Right.
So in 3.5 months from opening, she was able to replace his salary and bring him in off the road, and he is now at corporate training with my staff downstairs right now.
Is that right? That's a great story. I love when I hear stories like that because, if you think about it, franchising is a means to an end. It's given this gentleman opportunity to spend time with his wife and his son, and that's important to a lot of people. It's hard when you're on the road and you don't get to be with your family, and if your family is important to you, that's what franchising can do for you, So I think it's a really powerful story. When you're meeting with a prospective franchisee, Ryan, what's important to you? I mean, are there any particular types of characteristics or traits that you look for to say, okay, this individual would be a good match for TipTop K9? What's important to you?
Yeah, so really we're looking for people who love dogs, first off. That's probably the most important characteristic.
Sure. Yeah.
That, we're not really looking for the absentee owner. Our model starts as an owner-operator, and then it moves into an owner-manager, and then an owner semi-absentee, and they can open up a second or third or fourth location.
Right.
So I'm specifically not looking for, if someone's got, $700,000 and they want to buy a franchise, then that would be like Jimmy John's or something. Not TipTop. It's pretty low startup, but it's the first 6 months to a year is a little more intensive on the owner. So we're looking for somebody who's probably doesn't have that business experience and is wants to lean on us for the back office, the call center, the billing, the product support, the marketing support, and they want to go take that career, the dog training job. They want to do it. Then they want to train people, and then at that point they can move into either, hey, do they want to be semi-absentee at that point, or do they want to open up a second location, or depending on their goals, with lifestyle or income goals.
Yeah, it was interesting because the show that we just did this morning, Ryan, we were kind of talking about multi-unit franchisees, is to say, why not? You know what I mean? It's, a lot of times I think when people get involved in franchising, sometimes they just have this small mindset of just thinking opening, one single unit and that's it. But why not, if you're doing well, open up a second location, right? Or a third location? I guess it becomes a little more challenging. If you play different roles then, right? You become more of a manager, to the several different units, but nevertheless, I mean, it's a way to grow the business, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a easy way to grow the business like that. We don't start out with multi-units at the same time. One of our operators, he owns 4 locations, and he was a youth pastor before TipTop. Before dog training, he was a youth pastor. Yeah, so he actually has 2 in Oklahoma. Then he has 1 in Nashville, and then another one in Tampa, Florida. But that was all internal growth. He's training his people, and then he's starting the next one, or he's sending one of his managers at that first location to start another one.
That's fantastic. What's the training like, Ryan? Once someone decides that they do want to come on board as a franchisee, you approve of them, you like them, you say, okay, they're going to be a good match. I mean, how does the training work? Do they typically come out to headquarters for that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's pretty intensive. We train people about 3 times longer than anyone else in our sector in the dog training industry. So we have a 2.5-week virtual training where we go over theory. We go over all of our sales scripts in great detail, package explanation, etc. Because most of our people, they're not familiar with doing sales or consultative sales, right? So we go over scripting and dog training theory first for the foundation. Then we do a 6-week training at headquarters. The 6 weeks is very hands-on. It's 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. It's very intensive, but it gets them ready for their new business. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic because the training is important. You want your people to, of course, feel comfortable, because they're probably nervous, I imagine, in most instances, your first day of business and things like that. And so you want to be comfortable. What about like a tip? Well, I don't know if this is a good question, but is there such thing as a typical day for a franchisee for TipTop K9? I imagine every day is probably a little bit different, right? Which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But there's also those processes and systems that your people still follow. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I'll take Yasmin, the lady that just opened in Boise a few months ago.
Okay.
So a typical day for her, she's currently doing private lessons only. So we do private lessons and we do boot camps where we take the dogs into a home or facility for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks and train it.
Okay.
So her day consists of, she lets the call center know what her availability is. We book her consultations, and she's doing consultations maybe 1 or 2 a day, and then the rest of her days are filled with private lessons where she's going out to the house and training the dog and training the client and then writing them out homework. That's what her day looks like currently.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think it's and again, for people who love pets, I mean, this is really, an ideal job. And so, most people love pets, I'm thinking about your background, Ryan, because, you have so much experience now, in doing this.
Right.
there's a lot of different franchise opportunities out there today. We call our listeners aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, when I first started the podcast, I think it was like 1,200 different franchise systems, and today they say there's like around 3,500 or 4,000 different systems. So it's so hard when someone's looking for a franchise. They're like, oh my God, where do I begin? I mean, from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Yeah, so the biggest advice I would give is don't get in that analysis paralysis. Hey, let me read everything, watch everything, go to the discovery day, meet the operations team that would be training you, and get hands-on. If you're looking at a pizza franchise, go make a pizza. You know, our people, we have them come hands-on dog train for 6 hours with us. Make sure this is something that they think is awesome, and shadow some appointments so they know exactly what it looks like. And that's normally the discovery day for us is more of a polarizing event. And that's what I would, they're going to say, yes, this is awesome. Or they're going to say, I walked 2.5 miles in 5 hours. This is, I like a desk job. They're going to go one of those two ways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. I think that's great. So as the founder of the company, I could ask you, Ryan, like if you could look into a crystal ball, whether the crystal ball was 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, where do you see TipTop K9 in the future?
Our immediate goal right now is moving towards 40 locations. That's handling a lot of major metros around.
Sure.
And so we're adding 10 only 10 a year right now because our initial training program is pretty long. So we already have 3 scheduled for first quarter of next year and 1 for fourth quarter of this year. But that's where we're at right now, and it's pretty doable. It's not super strenuous, but we support all of our locations. So we're only taking a few at a time because I have to grow my other teams to support them. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to go too big, too fast. We've had stories, on the show over the years, right? I think one of the popular examples was Wendy's. Wendy's at one point, they were opening up I think it was 1 or 2 franchises a day, and just things got so out of control, they couldn't handle it. They had to put on the brakes and say, wait a minute. So I like what you're doing is you don't want to grow too big too fast, and I think that's a great strategy. What's the best way, Ryan, for our listeners to get more information on TipTop K9? If it was the service or the franchise opportunity, are there any websites you can kind of direct our listeners to?
Yeah. The website is tiptopk9.com. It's TIPTOPK and then the numeral 9. If you're interested in franchising, click on the tab, franchising, fill it out, and our franchise director will be in contact with you. If you're interested in dog training, you can fill out one of the other forms, and our call center will get in touch with you and get you out for a consultation where we can see what we can do with that pup.
That's terrific. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you, Ryan, and I'd really like to invite you back in the next year or so as you continue to grow, because I think this is a wonderful franchise opportunity.
Yeah, Marty, I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on, sir.
This has been my pleasure, Ryan, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up in our next segment, we'll be playing a clip from our Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship.
Through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising.
And our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919.
That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. We've been hosting franchise interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on this show. So picture this scenario. You just started a company, and you need to hire a chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, and chief operating officer. How much do you think it'll cost to achieve this task? What if you could start a company that immediately has these positions already filled in place and ready to go? Would you be interested? Well, today's great quote in franchising comes from Ben Crosby of Franchise Development for the Drip Bar franchise opportunity. And Ben discusses this notion on this Great Quotes in Franchising podcast. So here we go with Ben Crosby of the Drip Bar franchise opportunity. What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because there is so much out there today. There's more to choose from. It could be a little confusing to someone who's new to getting involved in franchising. So what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Yeah, be open-minded. Talk and learn through the business first. We on the brand dev side things, most should be looking to educate the consumer first and the prospects, because at the end of the day, if you understand and have a passion for whatever business it is, you have a higher chance of being successful. Franchising is a great opportunity because you're really partnering with a C-level team. Confirming that they're actually a C-level team is very important as well. When you're a prospect looking around, you don't want to be sold, a false hope, false promises. But if everything is checks off, you appreciate and understand the business, and you like the team that's there to support you, really in the early times, focus on working with the team. Get rid of all the distractions in the periphery. Work with the team, be transparent, be motivated to be successful, and a good franchise system will give you all the tools in order to be successful.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before in 14 years, Ben. As you mentioned, to partner with C-level partners. You know what I mean? That's right. You don't get that experience when you go into your own business. And I think that's really. If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Ben Crosby of the Drip Bar franchise opportunity, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com and go to our franchise interviews listed alphabetically page, or you can go to our franchise interviews listed by category page, and you can go under health and fitness. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.